I'm just going to lay out for you what I see and what I understand about this. The first principle is there is only one. There's only Brahman. Brahman is. And Brahman is based on Brahman alone, Brahman is. So there's not a lot of variance in there for all the comings and goings and details and back and forth that goes on with our more relative level of creation. However, most people at least start out in this lifetime experiencing themselves as an individual riding around in an individual physiology, and that the nature of life is to promote expansion of consciousness. And so consciousness starts to expand and grow. And then as that happens, we start to realize that the whole field of life is reflecting the same one consciousness, the same field of expression, the same ocean, an infinite, qualityless ocean of knowingness is reflected everywhere. When we look out into the cosmos, as mentioned yesterday, and tying into the question on morphogroups, we find that the universe is adorable. And so it's nice. It's nice to know. And it supports the ability to feel familiar and comfortable and at home with the cosmos. Because when we read, if you read too much science fiction, or even just looking out at the sky, it looks so vast and so big out there, and it seems a bit inaccessible. But nothing is inaccessible to consciousness, of course. And the initial impulse behind the manifestation of every human life and everything else in the universe is a very innocent, very sweet, very blissful impulse of cosmic intelligence. Sometimes there's reference to the bliss of Brahman, the bliss, and that's the initial impulse behind everything that manifests. So even when yucky things happen, there's something usually behind it that's trying to get to love somehow. So that initial impulse is one of what I've noticed, particularly over the last couple of weeks, is one of the most important fundamental resonances that activates in the causal field, which the causal field sits as the first manifestation out of unmanifest being, out of divine being. So that first impulse of manifestation contains within it like a very concentrated, like a bliss bomb, right? Like a very concentrated quality of bliss with that, has that intention to rise up and to become physical manifest reality. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So that impulse, when it first rises, is very pure. And its purity, the ability for any impulse like that, with any intention behind it, to maintain its purity as it rises up to the surface, will support the expression of divinity in the relative. It will allow whatever that initial intention is to make its way all the way to the surface without becoming corrupted, without getting waylaid, without getting blocked. It allows, it's that intensity of that wave of bliss that allows that intention to make its way all the way out to the surface. So downloading the energy signature of that bliss, I am seeing it wanting to settle into the third chakra region, into the solar plexus area of the physiology. And I'm also noticing that for some people, that's where the blockage is. So the bliss of being, the bliss that fuels the manifestation, because I've talked about how the manifestation is built on the coordination between complementary pairs of opposites, right? So the complementary pairs of opposites are sitting in every node of the astral field and of the energy field of our world and every node of the web of life. And they're like pushing and pulling against each other like that. They're opposites, right? So it's the friction is another way of looking at the bliss, the friction that's created, that churning of the ocean of consciousness are waves of bliss. The bliss is also subtler than the waves. The bliss is more primordial or fundamental than the waves. The bliss is in the rocking of the cradle of Krishna, the rocking between unmanifest being asleep in its own nature and unmanifest being awakening to its nature. Right there, that's where the bliss originates. It's a wonderful material. It's a wonderful quality which can be expressed at any level of density of consciousness. Just because it's born in the deepest level of being doesn't mean that it's not accessible at every level. The art of energy healing is to organize the inner landscape in such a way that those impulses make their way all the way through the denser levels of self and all the way to the surface without hindrance, in order to enjoy the full expression. And I'm still feeling it in the solar plexus area. I still feel like there's some kind of nice stabilization taking place there.